example of someone going, punk it. What was the message in that one, Tim?
That was one of the 82.
Number 78.
Yeah.
It was the last of a 20-song game, wasn't it? The number 13 or something.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Sovereign Light Cafe. Can you just explain to people who don't know what the significance of this place is?
Well, we all grew up down in East Sussex and down on the seafront in a little town called Bexhill, which is it's a kind of classic British seaside town, very even kind of quieter and more low key than the sort of Margates and Hastings type places. We used to go down there a lot. Richard and I used to go down there on our bikes, and I don't know why we used to think that we would meet girls down in Bexhill, which has I think the oldest average age of any town in the UK. But you got
if that's what you go in for, mate, that's fine.
But anyway, and there's this lovely little sort of, I don't know, greasy spoon, I suppose. Little seaside cafe. We used to go there and sit and watch the rain pouring down on these sort of grey English afternoons, and sort of dream about, being in a band, I suppose.
And that's not it there, is it? What's this little thing here?
That's one of the posh new shelters. I don't really know who's supposed to shelter there, but it's They've started making it a bit more fancy on Bexhill seafront.
Okay. So when you what was there a meeting about Jesse joining the band? What happened?
I can't remember whose idea it was, but one of us just mentioned it and everyone else sort of said, oh yeah, I was thinking that as well, which might have been to cover the awkwardness of the situation, but I think Jesse had been with us since before we started Perfect Symmetry, so he was already part of the band. It was just this way we don't have to do quite so many interviews because he does some of them, and he's in the photos as well.
He drives as well, which is handy.
And rides a motorbike. He's very talented.
Yeah.
We had an interview the other day, and the interviewer said, "Oh, where's Tom?" And I said, "Oh, you got me and Tim." And he went, "Oh, so I've pulled the short." So we were like, "Yeah."
That's a harsh reality lesson there.
Yeah.
Oh well. Let's talk about a couple of highlights on the record. What I love about this album is that there's a kind of even combination of really sort of classic Keane tunes and sort of more adventurous stuff, and it all works. It just hangs together very well. Let's talk about a couple of the more adventurous songs. I was going to start with maybe Black Rain.
That was one that I wrote. Jesse and I were doing this thing where we, to try and sort of get the process going of writing songs, we were doing this thing where you try and write non-stop for 12 hours and you have to try and write 20 songs and, get the brain going very quickly. And it was it was really good fun, actually. But one of the songs that came out of it was Black Rain. And I think I'd just been watching Waltz with Bashir, which is a great animated film by Ari Folman. And it's, I guess it's essentially a war film. And it was just it's a kind of impressionistic song trying to. There's at least one song about war on all of our albums. Obviously, a subject which a lot of people feel very passionately about, rightly so. And I like this one because I feel like it's got a lot of sympathy, and it's really written. It's kind of about the human, a human point of view, and I like the kind of impressionistic nature of it. It's almost sort of looking at the beautiful things in that sort of horrible situation.
I think it's absolutely one of your best songs, and in a completely different way, I would say, Disconnected, it's just one of those songs that you just feel like you've just known forever, and yet, you hear it for the first time, and it just has that instant familiarity. Can you just talk me through a little bit about that as well, please?
Well, the thing I remember the most about that is that I just had this little sketch of it, and I wasn't sure if it was any good at all. And we were working on, well, I was working on some other songs, and Jesse came into the room and he was like, pretty much like, I don't like any of the others, but I love that thing. What that you're working on? And then
Is that right?
That doesn't sound like me at all.
But anyway, so he sort of made me feel like it was worth pursuing. But it turned into, it's very Beatlesy, and I like the fact that it's basically a really sad breakup song or whatever, a relationship song. But it's an incredibly kind of jaunty melody, and I like that. That's a sort of very 60s-ish thing.
And you got a producer, Dan Gretsch, who's on a bit of a roll at the moment. By what process did you alight upon him?
We've never really worked properly with a producer before. I mean, we co-produced the first 2 records with a guy called Andy Green. But I think we've always been quite precious about trying to do everything ourselves, partly because I think we spent years and years and years doing everything ourselves, and not wanting to let anyone into the kind of circle. But with this album, again, I think is a reaction to Perfect Symmetry, which had a lot of, some might say, extraneous moments on it. I mean, it was full of stuff. And sometimes we felt maybe at the expense of the core of the song. Because we played a couple of shows in LA, a little tiny theatre called the Largo Theatre, and we stripped everything down to the bare bones and just played the songs off Perfect Symmetry with hardly any instruments at all, like we're going to do today. And we came away thinking, they sound as good as they do on the record, if not better. And so it kind of gave us this sort of thought process about trying to just simplify everything. And I think with Dan, obviously he's the first thing that he did sort of as a major piece of work was to engineer with Radiohead. So you kind of know that someone who's engineered Radiohead is going to be someone who knows how to capture the sound of a band. And because we were working with these songs as a band and the 4 of us in a room, and working in that way as opposed to kind of layering it up, we felt that was the kind of person that we needed. But also, he's a very versatile guy. So he's worked with the Vaccines at one end and then Lana Del Rey at the other. So we knew.
You're right in the middle, aren't you?
Yeah. What I thought that would be. Sorry. But he was great. I mean, he became like a 5th member of the band. He's strange because it almost seems like he's, nothing's getting done except it's getting done at a very fast pace.
Which is great, isn't
knew
it?
how to get us moving, which
He's
was
very good at tricking you, isn't he? You'll sort of go, I've got this amazing sound where this goes through this pedal and then it goes through that and then this mic's here and stuff, and he goes, amazing, yeah. What about trying that plugged into that, which is completely different?
Right, okay.
And you kind of go, yeah, that sounds good. And before you know it, he's just completely changed everything you're doing and made it 1,000,000 times better.
Oh, right, okay.
Quite depressing, really.
Before we got some questions that people have sent in. Just before, I saw some amazing footage of you, Tom, with Queen. No, steady, with Queen. Guesting, doing, what was it? It's a Hard Life.
It's a Hard Life, yeah.
And I knew you were a good singer, but bloody, that takes confidence to do that.
Well, it was pretty much one of the biggest honours I've ever had, if not the biggest in my life.
You didn't even break into a sweat.
I can't honestly remember that much about it. The thing is that it was for the Prince's Trust. It was at the Royal Albert Hall, and Brian and Roger, as I fondly know them.
I think everyone fondly knows them as Brian and Roger.
They probably do, actually.
those are their names.
May and Taylor called me up, and they said, choose a Queen song that you would like to do. with us, and it would be a pleasure to have you come and sing for us. And having kind of grown up trying to emulate Freddie Mercury in front of the mirror and do all the moves and sing like him and be, just a carbon copy of him, really, without the moustache. I was just like totally blown away. So I chose It's a Hard Life, and it was very, very sweet and touching because I got to the side of stage just before I went on, and bear in mind I was absolutely terrified because, this is living a dream. Brian then said that nobody had sung this song since Freddie had died. Freddie was the last person to have sung it live pressure, because no one else could hit the notes. So I kind of knew from that point onwards that when I went on stage I was going to have to hit the notes, otherwise I was going to look pretty stupid.
I think you got a permanent job there if you want it. When Tim finally does join Coldplay, then I think the gig's yours.
Yeah?
You can. Those two out of New Order formed quite a good band for about a year.
Those two out of New Order.
Well, the band was called the.
Stop it, Pete. You're embarrassing.
Should we move on?
Should we go?
But some people have sent in questions. Let's conveniently move on to those. They're probably better. Okay, I'm just going to randomly choose a few. I have a question from Thomas Kopp in Holland, who says, who decides which songs are going to be the singles? That's quite a responsibility, and it's very difficult, as almost every song on the new record would fit perfectly on the radio. That's nice.
Absolutely correct. Thomas Kopp, yeah, right. That's not his name, is it? Tim Rice-Oxley, he wrote that one. Well, we did. That was our ethos with this record, was to try and have 10 singles on the record, so that we made it a difficult choice. And everything had to be like 3.5, 4 minutes long. So it's been a really, really difficult decision. I think we felt Silence by the Night was a great first single because it does reflect the mood of the album, like Tim was saying about that kind of thing about trying to find kind of hope in the midst of despair. I think is definitely a theme that runs through that song, and it's a very uplifting, very singly song. So eventually we alighted on that one, although I think it was mainly down to Richard elbowing the rest of us, because I think there was talk of it being disconnected. So
I think it probably will be at some point, won't it? Surely.
Sounds like your choice.
It's definitely up there, yeah, without a doubt. I've got another question here from, I think, Dra House, D-R-A anyway, sorry for Dre House maybe, which is quite cool. Are you planning to make another documentary DVD like Strangers now that Jesse's in the band?
I'm not very interesting.
Neither were Strangers though, so don't worry.
I didn't watch it.
It was quite warts and all, wasn't it, Strangers?
Sometimes Keane fans ask me after shows, they're like, oh, what's your favourite Keane song? My favourite's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I've never heard of it. Sorry.
You're really soaring through this, aren't you?
I'm not a fan.
I would examine the paperwork on his...
I think we might be having another meeting shortly after this.
Yeah, we'll all be sitting around and then we'll all go, yeah, I was thinking that as well. We should...
Sarah Jenkins asks, what would you change about the world if you were king for a day?
If we were keen for a day or king for a day?
King.
Well, I always think that it's very sad that the peace movement died on its arse. I mean, whatever happened to that?
The peace movement?
Yes.
It's probably out there somewhere. It just needs...
It's a man in a tent next to the Houses of Parliament. That's what it is. That's all that's left of it. It's a woman, is it? Yeah. Oh, God. You're always one step ahead of us, aren't you? It's us men, isn't it? We go around blowing the world up. We can't help it.
Okay, is that anyone? got any
Anyone
to add
else?
to that?
World peace. Anything else?
No, sorry. I was going to say that's the same thing. No.
No. Reform our